The winter wind swept across the open plains of rural Texas, cutting through worn clothes and empty stomachs alike. Sarah Whitman walked slowly along the gravel road, her boots cracked and thin, her steps heavy with exhaustion. In her arms, she held her 5-year-old son, Noah, whose small body felt lighter with every passing day. Hunger had become their constant companion, a quiet pain that never truly slept. Since her husband's death in a construction accident the previous year, life had unraveled piece by piece. Medical bills drained their savings, the landlord took the house, and hope followed soon after. They had spent the last 2 weeks moving from town to town, sleeping in shelters when there was space and under bridges when there was not. Sarah worked wherever she could, cleaning diners, washing dishes, folding laundry, but the work was never steady, and the pay was never enough. Every day ended with the same question: how to find food for tomorrow. That morning, Noah had cried from hunger, not loudly, but in the quiet, broken way that frightened her most. As the sun dipped lower, Sarah spotted a large ranch ahead. Wooden fences stretched across the land, enclosing cattle that moved slowly through dry grass. The house stood firm and clean in the distance, a sign of stability she no longer recognized as part of her own life. She hesitated. Asking for help had become harder than walking miles with aching legs. Pride was the last thing she had left, and even that felt fragile. Still, Noah's weak grip around her neck made the decision for her. She approached the gate, her heart pounding. Each step felt like a surrender. When she knocked, the sound echoed louder than she expected, as if announcing her desperation to the whole empty field. After a moment, the door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with weathered skin shaped by years of sun and labor. His eyes were sharp but not unkind. Sarah lowered her gaze, struggling to find the right words. "Sir," she began, her voice trembling, "I don't want charity. I can work. I'll clean, cook, anything you need. I just need bread for my child." She held Noah closer, ashamed of the tears slipping down her face. She expected the man to turn away, to tell her to leave, as others had done before. The silence stretched between them, thick and unbearable. The rancher said nothing at first. Instead, he looked at her worn coat, the dirt on her hands, and the child whose eyes had lost their shine. Something unspoken passed through his expression, memory, perhaps, or understanding. Sarah waited, holding her breath, unaware that this moment at the gate would become the turning point of her life. The rancher remained silent, his hand resting on the wooden gate as he studied Sarah and the child in her arms. The wind tugged at her hair, and she pulled her coat tighter around Noah, as if that thin fabric could protect him from everything the world had taken away. The seconds felt endless. Sarah's throat tightened, and regret crept in. She wondered if coming here had been a mistake, if she had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. Finally, the man spoke. His voice was low and steady, carrying no trace of anger. "You don't need to trade your dignity for food," he said. "Keep your pride." The words struck Sarah like a blow. Her heart sank. She nodded quickly, preparing herself to turn away before the tears became impossible to hide. Rejection had become familiar, it hurt less when she expected it. But then he continued, his tone softening. "I'll feed you both." Sarah froze. She looked up, unsure if she had heard correctly. The rancher pushed the gate open and stepped aside, motioning for her to come in. "It's cold," he added simply. "And your boy shouldn't be standing out here." Her legs felt weak as she walked through the gate. Inside the yard, the air smelled of hay, wood smoke, and something warm, bread, maybe. The rancher led them toward the house. "Name's John Miller," he said over his shoulder. "My wife, Ruth, is inside." Ruth appeared at the doorway, wiping her hands on a towel. One glance at Sarah and Noah told her everything she needed to know. Without asking questions, she ushered them into the kitchen. The warmth hit Sarah instantly, making her shiver. Ruth set Noah down at the table and placed a plate in front of him, thick slices of bread, a bowl of soup, and a glass of milk. Noah stared as if afraid it might disappear. When Ruth nodded gently, he began to eat, slowly at first, then faster, his small hands trembling. Sarah stood nearby, unsure where to place herself. "I can work," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be a burden." John shook his head. "You'll work when you're strong enough," he said. "Right now, you eat." Ruth placed a bowl in front of Sarah as well. The first spoonful burned her throat, not from heat, but from the effort it took not to cry. She had forgotten what it felt like to be treated like a human being rather than a problem to be avoided. As Noah finished his meal, color slowly returned to his cheeks. He smiled, a small, tired smile, but real. Sarah watched him, her chest aching with gratitude and disbelief. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or how long this kindness would last. But for the first time in months, hunger was quiet, and hope, fragile as it was, had found a place at the table. Morning arrived softly at the Miller Ranch. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of the small guest room where Sarah and Noah had slept for the first time without fear in many weeks. Sarah woke before her son, listening to his steady breathing. The sound filled her with relief so deep it almost hurt. For months, sleep had been shallow and broken, haunted by worry. Here, in this quiet room, her mind finally rested. When they stepped outside, the ranch was already alive. Cattle moved slowly across the fields, and the air carried the scent of earth and fresh hay. John was repairing a fence near the barn. He looked up as Sarah approached, hesitation in her step. "I want to work today," she said firmly. "I'm strong enough." John studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right," he replied. But nothing heavy. Ruth could use help in the kitchen. The work was simple, washing dishes, preparing vegetables, sweeping floors, but to Sarah, it felt meaningful. Each task restored a small piece of the confidence she had lost. Ruth spoke kindly as they worked, sharing stories about the ranch and listening to Sarah's life without judgment. There was no pity in her eyes, only respect. Noah spent the morning outside, chasing chickens and laughing freely. The sound stopped Sarah in her tracks more than once. She had almost forgotten that her child knew how to laugh. Days turned into weeks. John kept his word, paying Sarah fairly for her work and never reminding her of the favor he had done. A small room near the barn became their home. It wasn't much, but it was safe. At night, Sarah sat on the steps watching the stars spread across the Texas sky, feeling something she had not felt since her husband's death, peace. One evening, Sarah found John mending a saddle. She thanked him, her voice steady but full. "You saved us," she said. John shook his head. "No," he replied. "You saved yourselves. I just opened a gate." Those words stayed with her. By spring, Sarah had gained strength and confidence. She learned the rhythm of ranch life, took on more responsibility, and even helped manage supplies. Noah grew healthier, taller, and brighter with each passing day. The hunger that once defined their lives faded into memory. Sarah never forgot the moment she stood at the gate, ashamed and afraid, offering her labor for bread. What she found instead was dignity. John and Ruth had not just fed their bodies, they had restored their sense of worth. Years later, when Sarah would help others in need, she remembered that cold winter afternoon. She remembered how one act of kindness, given without conditions, had changed everything. And she understood a truth that stayed with her forever. Sometimes, the greatest generosity is not charity, but the courage to see another human being as an equal.